you'd like to hear about what books I read for the month of July and what I thought of them, then just keep watching. And if you're new here, I'm so glad you decided to stop by my channel. And if you're coming back, you're probably like, where are you? I've never seen you in this location before. I'm actually in my travel trailer. We are at our church camp for 10 days, and so I thought it would be fun to do my reading wrap up for July while I'm in a different place instead of the same place as you always see me film in. So hopefully you'll enjoy this. I will apologize right now. My ice maker is running and I don't want to shut it off, so you might hear a little bit in the background, so hopefully it's not too distracting. But I've got my laptop here with my Goodreads reviews of the books that I read, and I don't have the actual physical books with me. So I will be popping them up on the screen for you to see the cover while I talk about them. And yeah, I feel like out of sorts being in a different space, but I'm also very excited to just be in a different space. And I love being here. This is my favorite place in the world to be, not in my trailer specifically, but at this camp. And so you'll probably just sense an extra joy in me because of it. So yeah, so that's what we're gonna do. So first off, we are going to start with the book Where He Left Me by Nicole Bart. Okay, this was sent to me. I won it in a Goodreads giveaway, and the story behind it just sounded so good. So let me tell you what it's about. College professors Sadie Sheridan and Felix Graham are on a sabbatical at Hemlock House, located on a remote mountain homestead established years ago by Felix's family. When Felix leaves on a work trip but doesn't return, effectively stranding Sadie on the mountain, her world collapses. Alone at Hemlock House, frantic Sadie struggles to make sense of what her missing astronomer husband left behind. Forced to confront two mysterious trespassers just as a powerful storm bears down, Sadie and the strangers have no choice but to ride it out together. As conditions worsen and shocking secrets are revealed, Sadie must face whether or not she ever knew the man she married, and is she fighting only for her own survival now, or still for the man who promised her the stars? Where He Left Me is another compelling, emotional thriller from an author who writes with a poet's eye for language and a storyteller's gift for suspense. And I will agree with that. That was something that caught me right away with this book, was the writing. It was just extremely atmospheric, which is something I greatly appreciate in a book. And also just, it was just so well written. It just drew you right in. You couldn't help but be drawn into the story and the atmosphere. Like, the idea of where it was at, it's a kind of a setting that I love personally. I love kind of remote getaway things where you have to take a while to get to, but there's also a creepiness to that and a danger as well. And so that, I just ate that up. So in saying that, let me tell you my review. I said I don't have a single negative critique about this book. I love the atmosphere, I love the backstory, I love the characters, I love the settings the story takes place in. I loved it all. I felt such a connection to so many of the characters. I was legitimately so creeped out a couple of times that I got the chills. Reading it at night while everyone in my house was asleep, and then having my garage camera alert that there was movement outside could not have happened at a more perfect time to totally immerse me in the story. You guys, I'm not kidding. Read it at night, and I was already sitting there all creeped out. The house is all quiet, everyone's in bed, and then I get this alert that my garage camera sees something, and I'm like, I was afraid to look and see what it was. Thankfully it was just a cat, but I was just, oh my gosh, totally freaked me out. I could not possibly have predicted where this would go, and I'm so glad. I loved the progression of the story and the way it ended. The only thing I didn't like, that it ended. I was sad to let these characters go. That is such a telltale sign of a great book, in my opinion. I'm so thankful to Atria Books and Goodreads for this giveaway win of this arc. I definitely recommend picking this up when it's available on November 4th. So Where He Left Me by Nicole Bart becomes available on November 4th. I highly recommend it. I gave this a 5-star. You guys, like I said, the only thing I didn't like about it was that it ended, because I was so sad to let these characters and this place go. And again, totally unpredictable. I had no idea where this was gonna go. And it is exactly how I like my, like, you know, thriller, like suspense kind of books to go. So I could not recommend it more. Next up was a book I was highly anticipating reading because I loved the original, you know, first 3 Hunger Games books. And so this was The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. And I can't really give much of a synopsis because I don't want to give away things from the other Hunger Games books if you haven't read them, which if you haven't, what are you doing? Like, read these books. They are young adult dystopian fantasy, which was not ever something that I would have pictured myself enjoying, but I'm telling you guys, these books are phenomenal. And just the things that they make you think about, and oh man, they're just so good. So I was really, really excited to read this. This is the backstory of President Snow, who is in those books. So he leads the Capitol and all of Panem, and he is, I mean, if you know anything about the Hunger Games, I mean, you kind of know with the title, he's not a nice guy, okay? So it goes back to his childhood and goes through and kind of gives you a picture of what he went through when he was younger. And so, of course, you're reading this thinking, okay, this is going to help me to, like, see kind of why he became what he did and did the things he did, maybe. And so I won't tell you if it does or not. You'll just have to read it if you want to. But I will tell you what I said in my review and how I rated it. I said, okay, this book just rocked me. The entire book was so heavy. There were bright spots that gave me hope, and then I had to remind myself of what President Snow was like and realize that that hope was falsely placed. The things that happened to the tributes before the arena and then in the arena, oh my gosh. This was even more brutal to me than the first 3 books in the series. The things that happened after the games, equally as brutal, maybe even more. The last lines of this book gave me the chills. I literally had goosebumps, and it does not happen to me, like, hardly ever. My husband was sitting next to me when I finished it, and I said, whoa, that was heavy. That was brutal. As always, Suzanne Collins' writing brings you right into the story and gives you all of the emotions and keeps you engaged the whole way through. This one was especially tough for me, though, and I can't believe this is considered YA because it was extremely heavy for me as an adult, one who reads suspense thrillers regularly. So I read heavy, you know, kind of things. I rated it 4.5 stars instead of 5 like I did the first 3, simply because it just felt too evil for me in some ways. It made me feel things I definitely didn't want to feel. You can't deny what a good writer she is, though. That's for dang sure. So that's the thing. She does it so well. When I say 4.5 stars, it's not because of the writing or anything like that. It's just, it gave me such an icky feeling. And while I am okay with that in some sense when I'm reading books because I know it's fiction and stuff, there were just some things about it that were just a little too much for me. And these books are brutal. I mean, they're graphic in the way they describe things that happen and stuff like that. So if that's something that you just cannot handle, then I wouldn't recommend them to you. But if you did read the first 3 Hunger Games books and have not read this one yet, I do recommend reading it. I mean, you're going to want to read it, and just seeing all those different things come along that you're connecting with the, you know, later, because this is a prequel to those. And so that was very interesting. But yes, definitely heavy, but I still thought it was really good. So 4.5 stars. Now, this next book was actually a buddy read I did with a girl that I used to be one of her youth group leaders, and she's an adult now, and so it's been really fun to be able to connect with her in this way and be able to read the book and kind of discuss some things. She hasn't completely finished hers yet, so we haven't had a full-on discussion, but I did finish, and so I wanted to share with you what I thought. And so it is The Picture of Dorian Gray, and it's a classic that I wanted to read for a long time. I've heard a lot about, but just never had really gotten around to it. And then I picked up a copy for very inexpensively at Second and Charles. And so then she had mentioned to me, oh, I've got some of the books you have talked about, and maybe we could buddy read, you know, one of them together. And so we kind of had a couple that we were choosing from, and I let her pick, and she said The Picture of Dorian Gray, so I was like, perfect. So let me tell you what it's about. Enthralled by his own exquisite portrait, Dorian Gray exchanges his soul for eternal youth and beauty. Influenced by his friend Lord Henry Wotton, he is drawn into a corrupt double life, indulging his desires in secret while remaining a gentleman in the eyes of polite society. Only his portrait bears the traces of his decadence. The Picture of Dorian Gray was basically a scandal. Early readers were shocked by its hints at unspeakable sins, and the book was later used as evidence against Wilde at the Old Bailey in 1895. So Oscar Wilde actually was put on kind of on trial because of things that were written in this book. So scandalous, and I'm here for some scandal. But yeah, it was, even though I've heard different little things about the book, I wasn't exactly sure what to expect. And I have heard things like the writing, especially a lot of times with classics, the writing is so different than the way we speak today. So sometimes it's a little bit harder to like get immersed in a story or even understand certain things. I will say there were parts where there was like French, and I didn't look them up, which I have to say, Molly from the Reading Hour, she totally would look up what the French was so she'd know exactly what it says, because she's just better than me with that. So Molly, I was thinking of you as I was reading that, but yeah, I didn't, so sorry. But otherwise, I didn't really have a hard time with the language and things like that, the way it was written. I found it very interesting. So let me tell you what my review was. I actually enjoyed this more than I thought I would. I found myself so disgusted and infuriated by the horrible influence of one of the characters, and seeing how having someone like that enter someone's life at such a formative time can be so devastatingly destructive. So much so that someone would completely ignore the advice of a good friend who actually cares about them. I definitely have favorite and least favorite characters from this story, and would guess that anyone with a shred of morality can easily tell which is which. I'm not going to give specifics so I don't give any spoilers to anyone who hasn't read it yet. When people are so praised about their looks, it becomes their identity and worth, and they are obsessed with maintaining these looks. We see it in celebrities all the time with trying to maintain a youthful look, and what it ends up doing is creating an unnatural and sometimes unrecognizable look. That theme played out in this story, and that was long before all of the plastic surgery of our time came to be. I find that incredibly interesting. Also, the idea that good looks can somehow excuse or cover bad behavior. We see that all the time too. It's a tale as old as time, but Oscar Wilde displayed it in such an exquisitely terrifying way. Oh my gosh, that's the thing. It really was terrifying reading it, and it was so sad to watch how Dorian Gray became so obsessed with his own looks. Not really on his own. Someone helped facilitate that, I would say, or encourage that, and it was just so incredibly destructive in his life. And watching this downfall, the fact that he was willing to like sell his soul to maintain these looks. And like I said, this book was written so long before the plastic surgery obsession and stuff of today. And I'm not criticizing you if you've had plastic surgery. Please know that. What I'm saying is, when people do it because they are so afraid of looking older, it becomes, you know, when you're so obsessed with your looks, it becomes something that kind of dominates a lot of your personality and who you are, and, you know, affects the way you look at other people and things that you do. And so it was just so intriguing to read something written so far back that is addressing something that's still alive and well today, and always will be. And I mean, humanity, it's, you know, it's very easy to become vain. We live in a society that does praise people for their looks, and people do get privileges because of their looks and things like that. So it was just very thought-provoking, and I really, really appreciated that about this book. So if you have not read it, if you have been like, oh, I want to read more classics and whatever, let that be one of them that you read. It's not super long, and it's just very interesting, very thought-provoking. And if you do read it, I would love to kind of discuss with you. I gave this book 4.5 stars, and I think it was really good. So whether you have read this book or not, I would love for you to just drop a comment down below and say hello. You can tell me anything you want to. You can ask me any questions you have, anything like that. I just love to be able to chat back and forth with you guys. That's my favorite thing about having a channel. So definitely just drop me a comment below. And if it is something related to this book, awesome. But if it's not, awesome too. And then the final book, yes, there were only 4 for the month of July, was A History of Wild Places by Shay Earnshaw. This was actually on my June TBR and ended up getting moved over because I just didn't have time to read all of them. That's why I only chose 4 books for this one, or for July, because I was like, you know what, I want to be more realistic about what I'm able to read right now, given my schedule with babysitting, and we've been traveling, vacation stuff a lot. I was really excited to read it in June and just didn't get to it, so I was definitely excited to read it for July. So let me tell you what it's about. Travis Wren has an unusual talent for locating missing people. Hired by families as a last resort, he requires only a single object to find the person who has vanished. When he takes on the case of Maggie St. James, a well-known author of dark, macabre children's books, he's led to a place many believe to be only a legend. Called Pastoral, this reclusive community was founded in the 1970s by like-minded people searching for a simpler way of life. By all accounts, the commune shouldn't exist anymore, and soon after Travis stumbles upon it, he disappears, just like Maggie St. James. Years later, Theo, a lifelong member of Pastoral, discovers Travis's abandoned truck beyond the border of the community. No one is allowed in or out, not when there's a risk of bringing a disease, rot, into Pastoral. Unraveling the mystery of what happened reveals secrets that Theo, his wife Kayla, and her sister Bee keep from one another. Secrets that prove their perfect isolated world isn't as safe as they believed, and that darkness takes many forms. And it says, hauntingly beautiful, hypnotic, and bewitching. A History of Wild Places is a story about fairy tales, our fear of the dark, and losing yourself within the wilderness of your own mind. So this has a bit of a, mystery, a little, mystery thriller kind of, and a little bit of like magical realism type of, feel. You guys, I knew from the synopsis that it was going to be something I would be very interested in, but I did not know how much I would love it. So let me tell you what my review was. I said, read this book now. This is easily one of my top books read this year, and probably in my top 10 favorite books in general. From the very first page, I was hooked. The atmospheric writing was perfection. I was so immersed in everything about this story. It took twists and turns I never could have expected. I don't even want to give details about anything, because I think going into the story blind, for those of you who have read this, you'll catch a little something there, is absolutely the way to go. This book will definitely be one I want to reread in the future, because I know I will catch things I missed the first time around. There aren't many books I love enough to want to take the time to reread when I could be reading something new, so that says a lot. I can't stop thinking about this story. I love the way it began, I love the way it ended, and everything in between. Just do yourself a favor and read it. So that might give you an indication that I gave it 5 stars, because like I said, it was easily one of my favorite books that I've read this year, and probably my top 10 ever. Like, I was so immersed in this story and in this place and in the mystery of it all. Now, I do want to say there is an aspect of it that is a little bit of, like, you have to just realize it's maybe not very realistic, but it just does something so cool to the story. So you can't go in being like, oh, this is going to be very realistic about this commune and blah, blah, blah. Now, most of it, yes, absolutely. Things that we've heard about different places like this and stuff. Also, just the idea that people can have such good intentions in creating a place that they feel will be safe for their families and their friends, and create a community that's safe. But then how things can take on a whole life of their own within that, and the obsession with keeping themselves, separated, just kind of the corruption that can happen amongst people like that. And when a society like that loses its founders, how the people coming up behind them can completely change things. It's just so good. It's so good. You guys, I loved it. I'm like, because I don't even know what else to say about it. Like I said, I don't want to give any kind of details about anything, because I think you should go into it blind and just read this book and take in the atmospheric writing. I mean, you'll hear me say that a lot when I talk about different books. That is something that is huge to me, something that I really, really enjoy. And not only that, just the depth of the characters. I'm very character driven when I'm reading, and these characters, some of them, I was just like clinging to them, like I was hurting for them, and I was rooting for them, and scared for them, and it was just fantastic. To me, absolute perfection, exactly the type of thing I love to read. So I definitely recommend The History of Wild Places by Shay Earnshaw. If you have not read it, definitely check it out. But those were my 4 books that I read for the month of July. I think I did pretty good, having 2 5-star and 2 4.5-star. And I've gotten a little more picky with my rating, and saying that these books were still that highly rated for me. So I hope that I've helped you learn about something, a book that maybe you haven't heard of before, or just encouraged you to read something that maybe you've thought about but just haven't, decided to pick up, but maybe now you'll want to. And if you do, please let me know what you think of them. I would love to know. Thank you guys so much for taking some time out of your day to watch me share about the books that I read for the month of July. And I am well into my August books. You're going to see this kind of later in the month than I typically do for my wrap-ups, but that's just because we're on vacation. And I'm not going to sit here and edit and do all that, because I'm going to get back out there with my friends and, hang out. And so I hope that you guys enjoyed this. Thank you so much. I will talk to you again very soon. Bye.